We're in a very transformative time for all of my college students here, not only in our lives, but in the nation. Our nation's being led by old, incompetent people who have no idea what they are doing, and so it's up to us to do something about it. Now is the time we organize. Now is the time we go out into the West End and actually talk to our brothers and sisters. Just please give me a hand raise. Have any of you guys gone just a few blocks and talked to your brothers and sisters? Have you asked them, are they registered to vote? Have you asked them how they're doing? How was their day? These are human beings. Like, what are we doing, guys? Truly. We sit here, somebody's paying $50,000 for us to be here. You are doing yourself a disservice if you are not using 24 of your hours to give back. Because somebody is giving their all just for you to be here. Now today we have two amazing speakers. I'm gonna lighten the mood a little bit. Mr. Gerald Griggs and Jamal Bryant, but we also have some great moderators. We're gonna have small talks up here to get the conversation going, and we're gonna open it up to you guys for a Q&A. So I'm gonna hand it over to my Vice President, Chris Lambry, to speak to you all and go over everything.
Great afternoon, everyone. How y'all doing? Good. It's good to hear. It's good to hear. Again, my name is Christopher Lambry Jr. I'm a junior political science major on the pre-law track from the best state, Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia. And again, as Ezekiel said, I'm so glad to have you all here to be a part of this engaging and informative conversation about community service, advocacy, political work, all the things that matter in strengthening and building our community. It wouldn't have been possible not only with our executive committee and the brothers across campus, but with you all, right? It's a united effort. It's truly a united effort. So again, glad to have you all here. And I don't want to take up too much of your time. And so very briefly, I'll introduce our first panelist who will come up and be in conversation and be in dialogue with Attorney Gerald Griggs. And then we'll move into Q&A for a bit, and then we'll go into a 5-minute to 10-minute sort of recess, grab some food, restroom breaks, that type of thing. And then we'll head into our next panel conversation with Pastor Jamal Bryant with our other panelists. And so again, let's get started. And so first panelist I'll have come up is Mr. David Riley. And so David serves as the chapter relationship. Next I'll have Will Dunmore. Will serves as the secretary and also Loving Stone co-chair. And next we'll have Chase Wiggins. And Chase serves as the chief operation officer. And last but surely not least, in talking about community and strengthening community, this man is dedicated, I think his life, to say the least, to doing this type of work, the work that matters. For those who do not know, Attorney Griggs is not just a leader who speaks from the sidelines. He is a veteran criminal defense attorney who has navigated thousands of cases, from local courtrooms to some of the most complex and consequential legal battles in our state history. His early, impactful work on a pivotal anti-bullying case was instrumental in changing Georgia state laws, proving that his commitment to justice creates tangible, lasting effects. His fight for our community extends far beyond the courtroom walls. It is in the streets, at the Capitol, and in our churches, where he has helped organize and lead some of Georgia's largest civil rights demonstrations. This unwavering dedication to the front lines is why he has made history within our own Georgia NAACP, serving as the first person to simultaneously lead both the Georgia State Conference and the Atlanta branch as president. That deserves a round of applause in itself. The great writer and prophet James Baldwin once wrote, "We can disagree and still love each other unless your disagreement is rooted in my oppression and denial of my humanity and right to exist." Gerald Griggs has built his career on fighting that very oppression and affirming the humanity and right to exist for all people. He leads not by speaking for others, but by amplifying their voices and fighting for the structures that protect their rights. So, without further ado, please join me in giving a thunderous welcome to a true champion for the people, the 13th President of the Georgia NAACP, Attorney Gerald A. Griggs.
Testing. Good evening, Mr. Griggs. Thank you for being here with us. As an Atlanta native and having matriculated through the Atlanta school system during your undergraduate years, good evening, Mr. Griggs. Thank you.
Good evening.
As an Atlanta native and having matriculated through the Atlanta school system during your undergraduate years, what does it mean to you to be able to serve and uplift your community closest to you?
First off, I just want to thank the Morehouse chapter of the NAACP and Morehouse College and all of you who are here. It means a lot. I'm born and raised here in Atlanta, Georgia, born on P Street, matriculated through Atlanta Public Schools and then ultimately Woodward Academy and then Emory. It means a lot to give back to my community because, you know, when I was growing up, you still had many of the civil rights legends still here. John Lewis, C.T. Vivian, of course, we still have Mayor and Ambassador Andrew Young and so many others. But to be able to sit down with Hosea Williams, to sit down with Dr. Joseph Lowry and just pick their brain was immense. And it kind of formed the person that I would become. Because, you know, being from Atlanta, you live in the shadow of Dr. King. Let's be clear about all of that. You live in the shadow of Dr. King. And for my father, who grew up on the west side of Atlanta, not too far from Dr. King's home, you know, I kind of always wanted to get a full understanding of who Dr. King was, because without him, there would be no me. Because the way I look at it is, when he said he'd been to the mountaintop and he looked over, I believe he saw us. And he saw us achieving, and many of us have achieved, but he also saw us giving back. And so I think that's what forced me and drives me to make sure that Atlanta and the great state of Georgia lives up to what he saw, lives up to what my grandparents saw, my great-grandparents. So that's what drives me, and that's why, you know, being from Atlanta, it means that we have to continue to strive for greatness.
As the first person in the state of Georgia to be president of the Atlanta and Georgia chapters of the NAACP simultaneously, how do you want to further civic engagement in the future for generations to come?
Well, the sign of any great leader is to train other great leaders. And so as the first person to ever be the president of the Atlanta branch and the president of the state conference, you can see I grade a lot. But it also meant that we were able to build great leaders and to empower the citizens of the city of Atlanta and the state of Georgia to make sure they understood the mantle of social justice and civil rights that we inherited in Atlanta. I mean, when you think about it, the second president of the chapter was Dr. Martin Luther King Sr. Dr. King was the president of the Youth Council. We had James Weldon Johnson, who was a member of the branch. You had Julian Bond, who was a member of the branch. I'll never forget seeing like one of the old charters, and you start seeing these names, W.E.B. Du Bois, you start seeing these names and you start like putting two and two together, like, wait a minute. If we're standing on literally the shoulders of these men, and then John Dale Johnson, these women, we have no excuse. So, you know, it was never about me being the first one to hold both positions. It was more about making sure that the legacy of the Atlanta branch passed on and that the legacy of the Georgia State Conference passed on. And the honor that I take now is that we have great leaders like President David Means, who's here, who is the president of the Atlanta branch now. And just on Saturday, Gwen Westbrooks ascended to become the 14th president of the Georgia State Conference. So it's about building and supporting other great leaders as we continue to push the organization forward.
Testing. Okay, I want to thank you again, Mr. Griggs, for coming out and supporting us. I'm actually an Atlanta native myself, born and raised here, so I have a strong connection of where you're talking about with the Atlanta community and, yeah. So, my question is, the NAACP has been a driver of change since 1909, forged by some of the most important figures in our culture. What values from its history do you believe are most important for leaders today to understand as a force for change?
First and foremost, humility. A majority of the leaders of the NAACP remain nameless. You never know them, branch presidents, branch secretaries, the treasurers, those field workers who are doing a yeoman's work. So first and foremost, humility. But secondly, tenacity. When you are a leader in the NAACP, that means you have the entire community looking at you to make sure you lead in the right direction. So you have to be tenacious. But third, and I think most important, is to understand that this is a marathon and not a sprint. You know, whatever we see on our timelines or on television, know that our ancestors have already been through this. So we have to learn from the blueprint they left. But we also have to empower ourselves to understand that the moral arc of the universe is long, but we bend it towards justice. And so I think most importantly, understand that this is the battle of our lifetime, and it's a lifetime fight, and that we have to remain consistent in that battle.
In today's day and age, a common theme in social activism has been digital, specifically through social media. How do you feel about today's modern forms of social activism and how much we keep going forward to improve our message to further push equality for all marginalized?
I think that social media has been a very powerful tool, both for good and for evil. I think that it's given us the ability to organize in a way that our ancestors never were able to organize. But it also became a crutch. Because let's be clear, after the marches, after the rallies, after the viral moments is when the real organizing begins. We have to make sure we take what we see online and apply it to our communities. Similar to what the young brother just said a few minutes ago, how many of us have actually gone into the West End and talked to our brothers and sisters about what's affecting their everyday life? I mean, you could be famous on social media, have a blue check, and never really get into the ground, the guts, the red clay of your community. And so I think that it's a blessing and it's a curse. Many times, I'm not gonna lie to y'all, I get up in the morning, first thing I do is click on my phone. And it may moderate what my mood is because I'm gonna see all kinds of triggering things. But then I think back to, wait a minute, this is in fact media. So I need to watch what I am taking in and how it's affecting me. And then of course it's always great, if we can mass mobilize 50,000 people in 3 days. That's pretty good. But I just think that people need to understand it's a tool, just like the television was a tool, just like the newspaper was a tool, just like the radio was a tool. We have to make sure we use that tool appropriately to get to the end goal for our community.
Good afternoon, Mr. Griggs. Again, thank you for coming. Unity often requires sacrifice. Can you please name a time in your life where you had to sacrifice something personal for the common good and the larger gain for everyone?
Yeah. The last 2.5 years. I mean, many people don't know that, one of the most special people in my life has been struggling through sickness all while I've been doing the things that I've been doing. So I think that what you have to understand is in this fight, you have to sometimes step outside of yourself for the greater good of the community, even though you may be holding some pain and hurt because you are seeing, individuals age and they're not able to be there with you the way you would like. So that's one sacrifice. Two, I mean, we do this for the love of the community. So sacrifice cases, money, opportunities, but it's never about that. What it's about is being able to come on campus and see the next generation of aspiring activists and leaders and scholars and lawyers and engineers as bright-eyed as I was 25 years ago, and to understand, wow, you really are having an impact on the next generation. Because I'll be honest with y'all, I can remember 3-4 years old, watching Eye on the Prize in black and white, seeing Dr. Vivian and seeing John Lewis being brutalized by Bull Connor and other sheriffs in Alabama. And then fast forward 15 years later, I'm standing in front of the Center for Civil and Human Rights with John Lewis, and he's super excited, saying, it's just great to be here with you. And I'm like, but you are the reason why I'm here. So I'm super excited to be here with you to change the course of Georgia history. So I just think ultimately the sacrifice is worth it when you see that the future is in good hands with the next generation. I mean, look what y'all did homecoming week, y'all's first event at Morehouse for the Morehouse NAACP. This means that the future is in good hands. You know, I get to hang out with two of my good friends here and get to talk with y'all about, you know, how you continue what we are doing and what your ancestors have done. And ultimately, in the end, we will win. So, you know, the sacrifice is worth it.
I want to thank everybody who was on the panel for coming and discussing. We're now going to open it up for a Q&A. If you have questions, we have our mic right down here. Yeah, just feel free to ask anything.
First and foremost, again, thank you for coming to speak with us, engaging in critical dialogue. My name is Christopher Lambert Jr. again. And talking about Dr. King, the legacy of civil rights movement, John Lewis, I was reminded of an event that happened with John Lewis, and someone had asked him, you know, you went through so much and so much had happened, right? How were you able to get through all of it? And his response was, we had fun. We had joy. And I thought to what you were talking about, just being tenacious, right? And it reminded me that they were showing their tenacity through the lens of joy. And so I wanted to ask, you know, what does that look like for you, right? Like, what has been those joyous moments in time of peril look like? What does that look like?
So during the first iteration of the Trump administration, we had a whole lot of marches. I mean, a whole lot of marches. But in the middle of the marches, we would do in Atlanta fashion things that you never saw done. Like we had Move Trump, Get Out the Way, which went viral. But it was those moments that even though you marching down the street, there's an opportunity for police to do all kinds of stuff to you, and that you might not make it home. And then of course, when you go to other places, people get arrested and beaten and stuff like that, gassed. But just like John, you had to take those moments and make sure that you grounded yourself in, one, the excitement and the joy of the experience, and two, that you are doing something not for yourself, but for the greater good of the community. So I think those moments, of course, you know, getting to meet some of your legendary idols, that brings you joy, and for them to actually say that, you know, it was great to be outside. And then the third one, and this is one you guys will understand when you're a father, when your 14-year-old who never comes, well, she's 17 now, but 14-year-old who never comes to any of the protests, and then you find out she led a protest in her school. That shows that whatever you are trying to instill in that next generation, they get it. So that's what is the driving factor, and keeps me having joy.
Thank you.
Grand Rising family, I am Sailor Margarita Walton, a third-year political science scholar attending the illustrious Clark Atlanta University. I'm here representing the NAACP, the New African Independence Party, where we nourish African independence politically. And I serve as a chairwoman, so I'm here to ask, in this moment of chaos, madness, and complete violation of humanity, as we've seen in DC, in Chicago, what would be your advice to that fear? Because it's purposely there. They are here, they're putting babies in zip ties, they're pulling us out of our homes butt naked. It's terrifying. So when you're doing this work, what would be your advice to us college students? Because we were the movement, and I believe this time now we are the movement. So what do we do with the fear, and how do we turn that into the power beyond this?
So, a couple things. First thing that came to mind, and I'm not a pastor or a preacher or anything like that, but God does not give us a spirit of fear. And so once you understand that whichever God or supreme power you ascribe to does not give you that fear, you need to understand that there's something external trying to instill that fear in you. And then secondly, being from Atlanta, we never scared. So what we've learned in being from this area, this town, is that we put whatever that feeling is that our opponents try to put on us, we put it back on them. And so whenever I feel like afraid, when the orange guy is trying to instill fear and he's running around here talking about he's law and order and he's zip tying babies and having Black Hawk helicopters, people zip line down, I think, man, he's on bond in Fulton County. And it's a violation of his bond conditions. So what I have to do is inform the people to inform the powerful and the politicians to assign a new prosecutor in the Fulton County case and send him back to Rice Street where he will feel some fear. And so let's take that feeling off of us, use the tools that we have to put it back on our opponent. So that's what I would say to that. And then also to remember, thirdly, what our ancestors went through. Right after the election in November, I went on a personal journey of self-discovery. I went down to the archives, which are in Jonesboro, the National Archives and Georgia's archives. Because my dad always told me, we come from 6 generations of Georgia, but I didn't know who the 6 generations were. So I went down to the archives and I found my great-great-grandfather, Henry Griggs, who was born in 1853 in Fulton County, Georgia. He was a slave. And so knowing that Henry was a slave, and Henry survived all these atrocities to be able to produce Gerald, who just produced a new Gerald. I need to understand whether it was the lynchings, whether it was the beatings, whether it was the horrors of slavery. We haven't faced nearly half of what they did. And if they could survive and produce us, and they saw us afar off, even though they never got there, we can survive an orange failed real estate developer from New York.
I just have one more question.
Okay.
So I, again, go to the illustrious Crackling University. I serve as Miss Black for the Alpha Phi chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, as well as a pre-law scholar. These are 2 entities to where we've done March to the Polls, we've done transportation. My question is, seeing our political atmosphere now, how would you say we can further push civil engagement? Because we do the things, but I think beyond the posting, how do we actually get the people to actually come out? Because it's beyond post and likes at this point.
Door knocking, canvassing, making sure that we are having real conversation with the recalcitrant voters, the ones who don't go to the polls, the ones who say voting doesn't matter and all that. We need to have a real conversation with them, because when SNAP benefits and their health care are cut off, they will understand at that point that not voting has real consequences. And then I would also say that we just have to make sure that the politicians that we are electing make good on their campaign promises. Because in the Black community, I see this meme all the time. The hood after Trump, the hood after Biden, the hood after Trump, the hood after Obama, the hood after Bush, the hood after Reagan, and it all looked the same. We have to make sure the politicians who promise our community so much when they come to NAACP Freedom Funds and they come to the churches and they do all that and then they forget all about those people, we got to make sure we hold them accountable. So I think it's a twofold, having that real conversation, showing the real life consequences of not voting, and then making politicians afraid again. Because if you don't do what you say you're going to do, you're going to hear from us, because we don't do and hold you accountable, we're going to hear from them. So I think that's the best way to achieve the goal we're trying to get. That's full participation. But I also think we have to take joy in the things we have already accomplished through civic engagement. Let's be clear, through civic engagement, Morehouse College produced the first black senator from a former slave state, and that's Raphael Warnock, my friend. So we got to take moments to look at the milestones, what we've accomplished, but then also where we have to go.
Thank you so much, King.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Now, unfortunately, we only have time for one more question, but I promise you guys will be able to network with Mr. Griggs after the event. After this question, we're also going to have just 5 to 10 minutes to set up for our next speaker. We have refreshments out there. You guys can go get a drink. Not doing food yet. That's for after. I know y'all hungry. So yeah, just one more question.
Good afternoon, Attorney General Griggs. My name is Dwayne Jones. I am a junior political science major with a minor in sociology on the pre-law track from Buffalo, New York. Now, I am an aspiring civil rights attorney that wants to fight for incarcerated men and women in the prison system. And I've always looked up to leaders such as Thurgood Marshall and Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X, and I've read entirely on them all. As an aspiring leader, what advice do you have for me and also the gentlemen within here to become a civil rights attorney or just to lead within their community?
That's a great question. And I think the best thing to do would be to find a civil rights lawyer who you can shadow, who can teach you the ropes, who can show you what the road looks like to get to that. I would also tell you, of course, reading everything Thurgood ever wrote, you can't go wrong. But there's a lawyer over in Alabama by the name of Fred Gray, who you need to read Bus Ride to Justice. Kind of lays out his matriculation from Case Western University, which is Case Western Reserve, to passing the bar and then being Dr. King and Rosa and Claudette's lawyer, all during the civil rights movement in Montgomery. So that's the most important thing I think you should do. And then you have to prepare yourself, because it's not easy being a civil rights lawyer. You're going to face questions from the greater population, and you're going to face questions from your own community. But you have to stay focused on what the end goal is, and the end goal is the uplift of our community. So I would just say, especially in Atlanta, there are loads of civil rights lawyers. I would reach out to them, DM them, they'll respond, trust me. So reach out to Ben and Lee and Harry and myself, and others that do this work, and see if you can shadow them for a couple of days, intern, and just kind of learn the ropes. So that's what my advice would be.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
For sure. Now I want to thank Mr. Griggs for coming, of course, and speaking to everybody. I also want to thank our moderators from my committee who came up here and asked great questions. Like I said, we're going to take 5 to 10 minutes to set up, so you guys can go out there in the lobby area. We have water, soda, juice, so whatever y'all